good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining today's webinar. And with us is Professor Poh Sun Goh. Professor Poh Sun Goh is the Associate Professor of the Department of Diagnostic Radiology, Yong Lu Sim School of Medicine, National University of Singapore. He is a Senior Consultant, Department of Diagnostic Radiology at the NUH, National University Health System, member of AMI Technology Enhanced Learning since 2011, member of IMSC Subcommittee on Artificial Intelligence and Community of Growth in AI since 2023. Professor Sun is a clinical radiologist and has worked at NUH since 1989. He is also a medical educator with Masters in Health Professions Education from Maastricht University, with deep passion for both e-learning, technology enhanced learning, and faculty development. Over to you, Professor Poh Sun Goh.
Okay, thank you for this lovely introduction. So everything I'll be presenting today is on this open access blog, the link of which has been sent to you ahead of time. So thank you to those of you who actually went online and actually looked at some of the material. Okay, so I will be essentially reading through this slowly, and then we'll have an opportunity to have a discussion. Or if there are no questions, we can have a break and you can take the opportunity to go through the material yourself at your own time. So thank you to the organizers at Sadiq International Virtual University for inviting me to give this webinar. In this presentation, I would like to take the opportunity to explore some useful ideas from the past and present that I believe can inform our future thinking and planning for the future of health professions education. So these ideas include the changing and evolving role of the instructor or teacher, so our role, the role of students, the importance of faculty development and professionalizing the practice and art of teaching in health professions education, the importance of self-directed learning and competency training for our students in best practices for learning, which is informed by learning science, in the increasing role of student support, welfare and coaching to optimize student performance, and the role of technology to support and enhance learning and teaching. So another way of looking at these ideas would be an examination of the role and importance of human factors and technology and how to optimize both. So sprinkle through this blog wonderful open access publications, which I've included here, including this very recent article by Professor Harden from an international conference on the future of health professions education held in Miami, November 2022. So if you look at some of the issues, they are very, very similar to what we are going to touch on today. The role of students, collaboration, lifelong learning, interprofessional education, technology, competency-based education, and equity of access. Now, the role of the teacher is evolving and has evolved from the sage on the stage to a guide on the side. So in fact, it's both, particularly with the explosion of easily accessible learning materials and content online. The increasing emphasis on self-directed and on-demand personalized learning. Through this dynamic interaction between teachers and students with learning materials and activities is the important distinction. This is key. The important distinction between information and knowledge and the processes that transform information into knowledge in the student. So this article here, Open Access, elaborates on some of these ideas. So at the end of the day, the key idea is to foster and support successful learning in the student. How teachers can promote and support this and how students can achieve this. A key consideration as part of this discussion is the role of faculty development for teachers and competency development in students. So I highly recommend the next two books. The first is by Ron Harden and Pat Lilly in 2018, The 8 Roles of the Medical Teacher. And in this book, Ron elaborates in detail the role of the teacher as an information provider and coach, facilitator and mentor, curriculum developer and implementer, assessor and diagnostician, role model, manager and leader, scholar and researcher, and as a health professional. And in this second book by Jenny Harden and Ron Harden in 2023, on the 7 roles of the student as a professional, including professionalism and the student's health and well-being, the student as a facilitator of their own learning, the student as an information processor and information seeker, the student as a curriculum collaborator and curriculum co-creator. You know, how often do we involve students in this? The student as an assessor, the students as a teacher, and the student as a scholar. So there's a science of both teaching and learning, and both teachers and students can benefit from a systematic and cumulative efforts to skill up their competencies as teachers and learners, respectively. Student welfare support and coaching also has a key role, not only supporting the physical, mental, and emotional health of our students, but also helping them through coaching to develop deeper insights into themselves, their motivations, in order to help students make informed choices and decisions in their professional practice. So this lovely website from a group of Canadian cognitive scientists elaborates on 6 very effective evidence-based methods for effective learning, including space practice, retrieval practice, elaboration, interleaving, use of concrete examples, and dual coding. So this Open Access webpage has downloadable materials which you can pull down and have a look and refer to yourself. A little while ago, a colleague of mine, we also did a systematic review on the role and importance of coaching interventions among healthcare students in tertiary education to improve mental health being and well-being. So running parallel with these human factors is the role of technology to support and enhance teaching and learning. So digital platforms increasingly have the capacity and the ability to give both teachers and students visibility into what and how they perform in a dynamic, real-time way, both to formal standards, testing to standards, and relation to peers. So both digital data and dashboards and artificial intelligence have the capacity to precisely personalize individual learning and training activities and programs. And we have the opportunity increasingly to do this through accessible technology and AI. So what is needed is professional capacity building and training for both our teachers and students. to best use technology and AI informed by sound pedagogy and learning. There is a lot that we know about instructional design, and I urge the audience to get into it. So this website touches on some of these ideas, but this includes the use of the ADDIE model, the SAM model, action mapping, learning cycle frameworks, Merrill's first principles of instruction, Gagne's 9 events of instruction, Bloom's taxonomy, the Dick and Carey model, Kemp's instructional design model, Kirkpatrick's 4 levels of training evaluation, and design thinking. And for those of us who use technology, content knowledge is not enough. Pedagogical knowledge is not enough. The sweet spot is when content knowledge meets pedagogical knowledge, and there's technological knowledge. So technological, pedagogical, content knowledge, TPAC. So this is the sweet spot sitting right here. So we are teaching to task. Technology supports us. We engage in teaching activities. Our students try, experiment, and make efforts to learn. And what we are really aiming for is transfer to practice. Technology is most useful and it's adopted when it's seen to work. It's efficient, it's easy to use, low cost, usable, scalable, convenient, and at hand. And one reason why I'm really an enthusiast in the use of technology, because it can support learning. It enlarges the learning space, extends our efforts, enhances our learning, expands what we can do, elaborates what we can do, and connects us to a network, a community, promotes interaction, engagement with content, enlarges the contact time, and students can work at a pace, in a space, in a place which suits them. So it's personal, it's personalized. So to finish off, we teach and we learn in a continuum of undergraduate through postgraduate to lifelong learning. This occurs before class, during class, and after class. One of the reasons why I asked whether other presenters shared their presentation materials. Learning can be formal, informal, or be related to performance support and just-in-time learning. And ideally, this is relevant and applicable in the workplace with real-life problems and practical problems and scenarios. So all of this allows us to access content and connect with people through usable, useful, educational technology. So with that, I thank you all for paying attention to this short presentation. I open the floor now to discussion and questions, or you can take some time to look at the material yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Maybe I would suggest if you can share the blog detail again so that our worthy attendees, they can visit that particular site and review quickly to ask some questions relevant to it. And floor is open.
So can you include the link in the chat box? I'm going to do that now, but yes, I'll just pop that down there. There you go.
Yes. So let me ask you, Prof.
Yes.
To begin with. Last night, I think maybe a couple of days ago, Eric Schmidt, the ex-CEO of Google. He spoke to Stanford University audience and he said that I'm like quite worried about the future because of the increasing context window of AI in these LLMs. Means now we can put 20 books in the LLM, load them together, and ask LLM to read 20 books and write another one book based on the 20. So the the insight coming out of it, like we humans cannot do that. But now the machine, the AI can do that, that it can basically retain large quantity of knowledge and then can basically understand and execute certain logic and come up with some inference, some information, some context based on that knowledge. So how do you see that particular role enhancing or transforming education?
So I think the key is ultimately the fact that we are humans and we live as humans and we interact as humans in this world out here. So the fact that technology exists is very, very similar to this bookshelf at the back of me. You know, there are many books, but they are not necessarily read. And technology could exist, including AI, but it's not necessarily used. So at the end of the day, it's humans which use technology or not. So we can choose to use it or not. If it's useful, if it's customized to the task, if it's effective at doing a task. So having an AI which writes a book doesn't necessarily mean the book is read or that the book is relevant. So there will always be a role for humans, just as there will always be a role for reflective learners. You can use technology. I'm going to use this technology. We are running an AI symposium in Basel, a whole day symposium on AI. And I'm going to use the analogy of physical training in a gym where you have a mirror, you have the person undergoing training who is reflective and aware and is able to look into the mirror. But you also have a personal trainer or instructor or coach present as well, who is there to give feedback. And you can argue that a AI system which can take a video or look at the performance of the person undergoing training, for example, myself, and speak to me, give me continuous feedback, also has a role. So here I am working out. I have the sensation of what's happening within my body as I'm working out. I can see what's going on. I have an AI system taking continuous videos, processing what I'm doing, matching my performance to my own personal targets, as well as certain objective standards. And also a human coach giving me feedback. So I think there's a role for all of this. Another way of looking at it would be the fact, if you have a video recording, compare that to the ability to spend the same amount of time, an hour, with an expert or someone who's very knowledgeable in an area, asking questions or going deeper into certain aspects which are important only to you. So you can watch a video, you can read a book, you can attend a course, or you can have a very personalized session in conversation or in training with someone who's knowledgeable or an expert. So I think the roles are complementary, human and technology.
Thank you, Prof. So can unmute yourself and maybe share some comments or ask a question. And you can use the link given by Professor Poh Sun in the chat, and then you can visit that particular blog, and the presentation is uploaded, and you can review and maybe share some insight, ask question, comments. So Prof, basically, like now what the challenge we see is this large context of, like, it used to be, say, 20,000 characters. Now it has gone to a couple of 100,000 characters, which can be retained in the window of question in LLMs. And that particularly has now, coupled with the digital actions, means we can ask to give us, like earlier I referred to creation of a book, but I can also ask that my students have this ability that they cannot learn this particular task, or they are not performing at this task based on the information which I've shared with you in these 20 books. How do you come up with how should I teach them? What should be the method of teaching? Shall it be video first, or it should be an exercise first, or they go to a reading and reading for 10 days or 5 days or 2 days? So this particular dimension is going to transform in many ways. We are at this moment referring to education, so I'm referring to education. But if we look at it in different tasks humans do, I think it is absolutely going to change the world.
Yeah, so this is where faculty development and being trained formally as teachers is really important. Because to answer your question, depends on what we want the students to learn and what the students are trying to learn. So you know Miller's pyramid and Bloom's taxonomy. So depending on whether it's knowledge or skill or a certain emotional reaction, there are different ways of teaching, supporting, and assessing the student. Straight out recall, you know, for knowledge, demonstration, repetition, and practice for skill, putting students into certain environments, getting them to have certain experiences, then reflecting on it and talking about it. So knowledge, skill, emotion. So there's a science to teaching. And I think the answer to your question lies in understanding the science of teaching. So the teachers in our elementary schools or kindergartens or secondary schools know this very well. In the tertiary sector, we are behind the 8 ball and we need to catch up, but we are catching up. The number of tertiary faculty who are increasingly going for faculty development, small workshops, larger courses, master's programs is increasing slowly, but increasing inexorably. The other thing, of course, is AI can help us devise micro assessments and micro learning tasks.
True. And that, Prof, we have used at the Al Sadiq International Virtual University courses. We do use, like, knowledge shared, and through the AI, we often create micro assessments and tasks based on help through the AI. So over to the audience and attendees here, if you may have any questions or comments to ask from our worthy Prof. Poh Sun Goh.
Yes, so Cheta.
Yes, I would also like to add here that it not only involves the science of teaching, but also the art of teaching.
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
It's become so imperative that we learn to communicate effectively, and you know, the whole entire rigmarole of being able to have just not the knowledge and the skills, but also the empathy that is involved. And thank you so much for this thought-provoking.
Most welcome. Nothing beats knowing our students. You know, we need to know the content. and know a
Yes.
professor, but nothing beats knowing the student, knowing this student.
True.
So that's the art of teaching.
Yeah.
That's where
Thank you.
personalized teaching and personalized training comes from. So also for the student to know themselves. You see, so this is where coaching comes in.
Mhm. Yes. True.
Omar, you have a question?
Yeah. Hi, how are you? Thank you so much. I'm a football fanatic, and I like the concept of, you know, a God's gift, or someone who you train to become you know, a God's gift. So as a teacher, how do you see it as a God's gift versus training? And you know, and the things that come within that, because unfortunately I've seen a lot of the teachers, they are being teachers only on the concept of being teacher, rather than devoted, emotional, attached, you know, and just because of the let's say the job description, rather than, you know, all the other details. So that's why I'm just being like a devil's advocate in that way. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is where knowing the students and self-knowledge really comes in, because the thing is, certain things come easy and certain things are more difficult. So where there's knowledge or skills or an emotional connection or developing emotional bandwidth. So the role of the students, the role of the system, the role of the teachers, the role of an organization or school, a course, a community, AI helping and supporting all this, is to give insight and visibility into what the student and teacher are good at, and give insight and visibility of what can and should be improved. So I think we have long ways to go, but the path is well mapped out. I mean, it's well mapped out by our, our professionally trained teachers. It's well mapped out by our learning scientists. And we do have the ability. I think AI can help us accelerate our development as students, as teachers. So there's hope. And it can also help us scale up. The other thing is, through open practice and open content, the gulf in standards, teaching content, training experiences, outcomes between different systems will become increasingly visible and glaring. And students will march with their feet and their dollars and go where they can get best trained in a empathic, knowledgeable way.
So sorry, Prof. The worry. I'm worried, being from the Arab world and the third world countries, is that though all we are talking about is like in a way show business and everything. Unfortunately, we go back to teacher centered rather than a student centered, and not community centered rather than institute centered. So I'm really worried about that. With all these things that are
building educational environment, you can say.
So probably I'm really worried about these sort of jargon, okay, more than the essence of it. So especially in the third world countries and the Arab world, we are still, the authority is in the hand of the teacher, of the institute, rather than the students, rather than the community and everything like that. So I'm very pessimistic rather than optimistic from that aspect.
Well, our students are hungry to learn. I think that that's the same everywhere in the world. And whatever a particular school system is, at the end of the day, when you come into practice, when you're practicing as a physician, as an allied health professional, the demands of practice will shake up. The teacher is not going to be seeing patients or performing an operation. It's the student who's going to be doing that. So the demands of practice, the demands of the real world will show up, different models. If not, certification will show it up. So you need a license, right, to be a dentist or a surgeon or to be a nurse. The licensing system will show it up.
Thank you, Prof. So there is a question in the chat by Dr. Bahauddin Abdul Rahman. He asks, what kind of written assessment do you prefer for future rather than MCQs or OSCE or ASCII type? Especially, can we fix it by AI?
Well, the thing is, MCQs and OSCEs have a long tradition. And there are large question banks of both OSCEs and MCQs, which have been validated and standardized and applied across the world. So, these aren't going anywhere, but more personalized and relevant types of assessment will probably become complementarily relevant. In other words, you sit your MCQ test or OSCE as the first cut. But before you fly the jet plane, before you start the operation, there are certain tasks which are very personalized and very focused and relevant to the task at hand, which are going to be applied. So assessment is a science. There's a spectrum of assessments, of which OSCEs and MCQs exist, but others will come in as well.
Thank you, Prof. Any other comment, question, feedback? I hope you all have gone through the website which Prof has shared in the chat, and we have seen the presentation today because some of you came late, and based on your going through, if you have any feedback or question to us, please, you can unmute yourself or you can raise your hand.
So there's a question in the chat. In addition to GPA scores and so on, whether the interview is effective. So there's a science and an art to program acceptance sort of systems. And the thing is, it really depends on what you're looking for. So interviews are very good for getting a feel of a person, engaging with them, seeing how they react to different scenarios. You can put them in simulated environments, you can put them in practice environments and observe them, and so on. So again, the interviewing process is part of an expanded assessment process. The more data points you have, the more information you have, the more time you spend, the better the outcome. In certain organizations, for example, a prospective employee will meet everyone, all the key members of all the teams that they will potentially work in, plus get to be thrown into certain situations and see how they perform. So yes, the interview is part of it, because the interview can pull out certain things which a test score cannot. Yeah, so there are two questions. So the first question is, if learners depend on AI tools, does it affect their reasoning ability? So to move back to the analog days is the idea between open and closed book exams. If you give the students access to the textbooks, does it mean they're able to reason less? I would frame it in a slightly different way. So let's say in a practice setting, and you want to look up a drug dose, just to be sure that it's the correct dose. To me, that is okay, and that should be encouraged. In fact, the system can be configured so that as you're typing it in, the system will actually prompt you into not only doses, but also give you certain relevant information, for example, the liver function, the renal function, so that you can consider adjusting it and alert you whether the patient is allergic to something or not. I think the key thing framed around that question would be perhaps early on. So let's say in the first year or two in a medical program, nursing program. And you want to test whether a student has understood something. So it's actually quite straightforward and easy to do that. You can basically tell the student to put away their AI tool and ask them to write and explain how they reach the conclusion, defend it, elaborate on their choices. You can do that in an interview and in a discussion. So that immediately checks. And you don't wait till the exam. You do it on an ongoing basis. The teacher can do it. The peers can do it. The AI platform can do it by giving you dynamic feedback. And I think the other question was, do you have any preference or favor for any particular instructional design model? So the thing is, so I encourage you to look at that webpage. Each design model, the reason why there's so many design models is each model is there for a specific purpose. So it's understanding the process, understanding that this model or these design ideas are relevant for this task. So in fact, it's good that there are so many design models. It means that there are a range of tasks to which different models have been created or formulated to fit those tasks. So for those who are starting out, the easiest way is to work with an instructional designer who has been trained to use this. Tell them what you want done and get them to work with you to design your program. And of course, that doesn't stop you, and that doesn't remove your responsibility from at least understanding what they are trying to do and why they are applying this model.
So Dr. Omar Al Hussaini has raised hand. Please, if you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get back to Python. I'll get back to Python machine learning language in a second.
I'm just going back to the example, Prof, you gave about the doses and everything. It's not about that. It's about the awareness of the community of the practice that we have. If I will do that in front of my patient, my credibility will be much lower. This is in some sense some of the communities. Okay, so we need to make sure that there is an awareness from the community to our practices, as well as the awareness of the institute for the community to understand these things. So these are the so-called the soft skills now that there is emphasis on it, and the artificial intelligence and so on and so forth. When it comes to practice, we need to look into these sort of minute things so that we increase the awareness from the institute, the community, the practitioners, because these things which are, we see it in our practice. If I will do that, okay, whether if I'm in the private or in the government, I'm sure my reputation will be affected. So this is, something which I wanted to share again. Probably I'm talking too much, but these are the experiences in life as a practitioner as well as a health professional educationalist. Thank you.
So actually, with a few things. So as you're prescribing on a computer, actually people don't see what you're doing. But from the point of view of reputation, actually the really well-known, very famous, well-regarded practitioners that I've met have no problems actually openly acknowledging that this is a drug or technique which they're not familiar with, that they'll need to look it up. And they go ahead and look it up in front of the students or in front of the visitors. So I've seen that many, many times. In fact, my respect for people goes up when they have to look something up. If you work with lawyers, for example, I'm very happy for the lawyer to tell me this is an area of law which they're not familiar with. They're going to consult a colleague who is an expert, and we do that all the time. So we may be a cardiologist, but you are not an expert in gynecological conditions. It would be remiss to offer advice in that area. And so I would toss that into the mix. Okay. So Python, machine learning. I don't think you actually need to know it. So if you're a computer scientist, if you're doing a PhD or master's in computing, it might be useful. Nowadays, it's possible to do coding actually without understanding these languages. You just basically type and input what you would like to do, and the system will come out with a rough draft of what, or at least come out with a program or with machine language to try and do what you want done. Now, whether it can help you troubleshoot or not is a different task. But I don't think for a basic healthcare practitioner, teacher, or student, you need to learn Python. Using AI for research processes, well, it actually goes beyond using generative AI for research process. People are using it for literature reviews. People are using it to write, preliminary drafts, screen emails, and so on. I think it's knowing the role of generative AI, and then basically seeing whether this is useful. I think it is helpful to be able to customize your prompts to use generative AI to come up with a customized output for you. But at the end of the day, we are still responsible for what we come up with. We need to acknowledge that we have used AI as part of the writing process. Journals require us to acknowledge, explicitly state how we have used AI as part of the processes. And increasingly, AI is going to be embedded in these devices that we carry around with us, to give us prompts, to be screening our emails, before we even get to it. So we will need to know what these layers of processing are doing. To give another example, just doing a simple web search. So this is part of faculty development and competency development. It is important to know what algorithms are doing when they present you with the output of a web search or literature search based on the keywords you're using. That already is driven by algorithms and AI. So it's important to know that. Which AI bot? There are lots of AI bots around. In fact, the key thing is being familiar with a range of AI tools and models to see which is useful. And I think increasingly commercial vendors are also embedding AI tools into the software that we use, including Excel, Word, PowerPoint, and so on. It doesn't have to be the final question, but can we take all levels performance of students during putting final assessment? At the end of the day, the whole idea of having a data warehouse and data on student performance is, at the end of the day, the more information you have, the better. Already we could log on and capture every keystroke, every draft, every word, every gesture, every emotion which is expressed, and attempt to make sense of it. And isn't that what a good coach or what a good teacher, what a good mentor, or what a good guide does? They observe, they take note, they give you feedback. So the more information you have, the better. And that's probably why, if you look at current assessment systems, there are people who do very well at the university, for example, who do really poorly in the workplace, and vice versa. That's related to the assessment data. That's not related.
True. And most important, Prof, in understanding these is to, in order to understand what AI can do and how it is important to understand the nature of problem which we want to solve through AI, and putting ourselves in the role of a student to first perceive what impact outcome it can give. So then only I think we can do well and perform better with use of AI, rather than just taking a help to solve our problem, not thinking about the student. So I think that is something very important in drafting a solution or coming up with some ability to solve some problem.
Yeah, and students are not stupid. So
Yes.
AI is not going to help them clock a patient, counsel a patient, stitch a wound, and so on. AI will help them may help them write the assignment that you've assigned the student. But as teachers, we can create an assessment item that a student cannot use an AI, generative AI, to solve.
Right.
You could ask the student to explain a concept or to teach a concept in class to us, or to demonstrate a skill. AI is not going to help them.
Exactly.
The student will not use AI for this assessment item or task.
Prof, I think, can you list percentage of quiz hardness regarding student performance from high to low level, please?
Sorry, I don't understand that question. Can you list percentage of?
Yeah. Dr. Baha, if you can unmute yourself and ask this question. What do you mean by percentage of QS?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Bashar, and your presenter, Professor Goh. I'm really, I need to know what kind of the percentage of the questions, like 20% for the high performance, 30% for the intermediate performance, and etc. I think that's clear.
What do you mean percentage of performance?
I mean, we can take all the level of the performance of the students. As you know, we have many performance stages like high, medium, and low performance. So how we can arrange the question hardness regarding these levels?
Yeah, so this is part of the science of setting questions, and in this setting, it's impossible to answer that question because there are metrics that you can use when designing these questions. But it really depends on it's not only the pass percentage, which is the question you're asking, should 70%, the threshold be 70% or 80%? But what the nature of the test is. I mean, if it's a patient safety issue, for example, the pass and performance standard is 100% with no errors allowed. So it really depends on it depends on the task that you're testing for, but also what your aim for the examination is. I mean, for example, there are some examinations where it's pass or fail, and there are some examination systems where you basically just have to turn up and submit, make sure you submit everything in, and you're going to pass. Yeah, so this is a nuanced question, and it's not a 50, 60, 70, 80 question. It depends on what your system is, what you're trying to do, and what the aim, your outcome of the whole process is.
Thank you, Prof. So I think maybe this is time to end this session. Thank you so much, Prof. Goh Sun, for giving us the opportunity for a very enlightening interactive session. And thank you all the audiences for joining this at a different time than our usual time. So thank you all and have a great day ahead. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.